The ACU had rounded up the help of all the motorcycle clubs in the north of England to help the Isle of Man Centre put on the 1975 Isdt. We all travelled in vans and cars from Liverpool on one of the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company boats. The 4-hour journey passed in a haze of beer and sweaty socks. We pulled into the harbour at Douglas and then had a bit of time to go out and sample the delights of the island, including the big wheel at Laxey. Once the event got underway, of course, we'd have no time for sightseeing, as this was the 50th running of the Isdt. Harry Shuttleworth, a jeweller from Tottenham, was the chief timekeeper, and he would celebrate his 70th birthday on the island. Involved in the Isdt since 1937, he led a team of dedicated people in charge of 9 time checks. The South Liverpool Motor Club provided one of the time check teams, with Alan Corns in control and Bert Bowman and Frank Anderton as his helpers, while Bert Metcalf worked with the timekeepers at the special tests. Club member Ken Franklin was charged with controlling all the travelling marshals, a motley bunch of what today would be called trail riders, who came together for the event, and friendships founded then are still evident today. Your film cameraman, Dot, was out riding a Bultaco Sherpa trials bike, and along with all the other marshals would be out every day opening and closing the course. And this film was taken on a Super 8 Kodak Cine camera, which was put onto DVD in 2007 and edited in 2010, so apologies for the quality. At the opening ceremony, held in front of 2,000 people, including members from 17 countries, all gathered in the Palace Lido ballroom. The FIM jury president, Juan Sola Bulto, referred to Great Britain as the cradle of motorcycle sport, and to the Isle of Man as an incomparable venue for the 50th Isdt. British team manager Ken Heens, shown here taking part in an earlier Isdt, had shuffled his team when sickness laid low Dave Smith, who was diagnosed with glandular fever and rushed to hospital on the Saturday before the event started. Mick Bowers was also ruled out when the abscess on the knuckle of his left hand did not heal. So Dave Hobbs and Nick Jeffries were drafted into the trophy team, and reserve Ted Thompson and Elwyn Price were promoted to the silver vase. In all, there would be 10 trophy teams: Austrians on Pooks, Czechs on Jawas, British on Jawas, Dutch riders on Monarchs, while Italy, Sweden and France chose KTMs. Riders from the USA were aboard Pentons, and the West German team on Zundaps. In the Silver Vase team competition, there were 13 countries represented, and the more unusual mix of machinery: Ozza, Simpson, MZ, SWM, Bultaco, Mako, Hercules, and just one Husqvarna. 42 club teams were represented, including the British Army Motorcycle Club, whose riders were George Webb on a 250cc Rickman Honda, Ken Applewhite, Bob Belton, and team manager Eddie Vaughan. The Motorcycle Club of Wales was represented by Roy Morris, Keith Gush and John Davis. But the very first casualty of the event was French trophy team member Jean-Pierre Mathieu, who broke his leg in Liverpool. He was waiting for his bike to be loaded onto the ferry, and he couldn't resist an opportunity to take the KTM for a spin, and forgot to ride on the left and crashed into a car. Scrutineering got underway, and keen eyes spotted that the Austrian-built 125cc KTMs were fitted with an all-new 6-speed KTM engine instead of the usual Sachs powerhouse. The lovely Zundap machines ridden by the West German trophy team sported revamped rear suspension and gas oil shock absorbers. The Italian Vase team were riding SWM machines fitted with Sachs engines. There were just 2 single-cylinder 500cc machines in the Parc Fermé. The very first 4-stroke 500cc Yamaha to be used in Europe, belonging to privateer American rider Gary Surdike. But the machines attracting most attention belonged to the Hercules manufacturer team, fitted with Sachs Wankel rotary engines, which would be ridden by West German Fritz Weitel, American Doug Wilford and Italian Ivan Saravesi, all experienced Isdt riders. The sizing of these engines was controversial, as the FIM officials deemed they were 600cc, even though they only had the power of a 296, and in fact the following year the engines would be classified as 300cc. Other unusual machines were the 335cc automatic Rokon machines, one of which was ridden by American Ron Bishop. The bikes were fitted with electron wheels, hydraulic brakes and a manual pull starter, like a lawnmower. As usual, the Italian riders were very imaginative when presenting their machines for scrutineering. Trophy team member Emilio Testorossi raised eyebrows when his machine was found to have 3 legs. Well, it was the Aleman. He claimed the extra shock absorber was part of the KTM original equipment and should therefore be marked. Officials did a bit of head scratching, but had to ask for a jury ruling. When Emilio asked if he could carry the shocker anyway, the chief scrutineer, Ernie Woods, came up with a classic reply: "You can carry what you like, lad, providing you don't use it." So the event got underway on Monday morning with a course that would take competitors to both ends of the island, south to Port St Mary, north to Peel and on up to the Point of Ayre Lighthouse, before turning south back through Ramsey and Laxey to Douglas Head for the special test. 2 laps of almost 300 kilometres, which would be an easy ride for many. Another unusual special was the SCS, ridden, according to the programme, by Roy Morris from North Wales. The bike had a 125cc Sachs engine in a Cheney frame, and the initials stood for Smart's collection of scrap. It was one of Ivor Smart's specials, and I'm sure this is Ivor, at the start, taking over a ride from a non-starter. Di Jeremiah is seen having a bit of bother starting his Jawa. Running on B's schedule, it would prove to be an eventful day, and the very first British retirement was Army rider Bob Belton when he holed the piston on his greaves before the very first check. American Ken Mars broke an ankle near Dalby, but trophy teamster Tom Penton failed to reach Russian Abbey. His Penton caught fire when a chunk of foam from the air filter was set on fire by the exhaust and the bike was destroyed. Sadly, another American, Bren Moran, would lose his life in an accident when he crashed his Can-Am on a disused railway line near Peel. British rider Nick Jeffries crashed and dislocated his shoulder near the 6th control at Ginger Hall. Day 2 was the reverse of day 1, and Elwyn Price crashed on the second day, dislocating his knee just after riding up the slabs, where Willie Budden had caused a big pile-up. All sorts of problems had arisen, with protests from riders who clocked in early to those delayed by problems at the acceleration test in Kerristal. In the trophy, West Germany had led Poland, but after all sorts of machine and rider problems, the Swedish team had moved into second place. The special test up at Douglas Head was ridden each day and was a popular spectator viewing place, and allowed the motocross specialists to shine. Day 3 was run over 2 laps of a new course in the centre of the island, over rocks and through forests and deep mud. Route marking for the event was done by a team from the Worcester Auto Club. Here is Jeff Chandler splashing through the water on his Ozza. Atrocious weather hit the island just when the schedule was changed to the faster A, and this really sorted out the men from the boys. Over 50 riders were late before the early check at Greba, and over 50 would retire. Trophy teams were decimated and some excluded, notably Czech trophy man Valek, who had presented his time card twice at the check on day one. The South Liverpool Club timekeepers were none too pleased when one of the most experienced riders, John Pease, clobbered the table, sent the clock flying as he slid into the Baloo check. In the forest at South Barrule, the riders came through thick and fast. And here's a rogue outrider amongst them, and he pulled over and then followed his rider through. Naughty. The mud near Black Hut was claiming many victims. Amongst them, the marshals from Kings Norton, when their recovery Land Rover sank in the bog, and a tractor had to pull them out. 2 halflingers trying to recover an abandoned 100cc KTM took over 3 hours to get the little bike out of the black stuff. No problems for the British riders, who are used to the mud. The motocross test up on Douglas Head gave former world motocross champion Jeff Smith on his Can-Am a chance to use all his skills. He now lives in Canada, and it was 25 years ago that he won a gold medal on a Norton Dominator in his first ISDT. One of the travelling marshals is enjoying a ride on the test, as I watch alongside Peter Duke, son of Jeff Duke, the famous Isle of Man road racer. One of the Swedish trophy riders was Hans Eriksson on a 360 KTM. His son Anders would become a 7 times World Enduro champion. Thursday's route was the reverse and in a terrible condition, with many spectators and team minders out on the course to offer advice on the correct route to take. Manx Radio, the first licensed commercial radio station in the British Isles, was transmitting commentary every day. This part of the course was great for spectators and team managers, who ran in front of the riders to point out the best route, often without success. However, Studulka got a great run up the hill. One rider stopped to ask for directions from the spectators, who were all quick to applaud a good ride.
Winding your way down on Baker Street, lighting your head and dead on your feet. Well, another crazy day. You drink the night away and forget about everything. This city desert makes you feel so cold. It's got so many people, but it's got no soul, and it's taken you so long to find out you were wrong when you thought it held everything. You used to think that it was so easy. You used to say that it was so.
More drama on Thursday when Brian Higgins, British trophy team member, wobbled in at a time check with a lot of loose spokes in the rear wheel. Later, he claimed that somewhere along the way, the fairies helped him and the wheel was magically repaired. Meanwhile, the Italians aboard the SWM Tiddlers were taking command of the event, while more and more riders retired injured. The course that had been declared by some on day one to be a doddle was claiming more and more victims as the weather made the going more difficult. One of the Czech trophy team ran out of petrol on the motocross test, and though cans of fuel magically appeared, he was being watched by marshals and had to push the bike to the finish line. Day 5 was another new route to the south of the island, and by now only 173 of the 307 starters were still going, and 9 of those were on 50cc machines. Dave Jeremiah, on board his 250 Jawa, was clean all week and on gold standard, and would end the event as the best British rider. Herbert Scheck, the giant of the West German Vars team, had a lucky escape when his Maiko went a bit wild. The sensational news on day 5 was about the mistake with the results, when points had been carried forward instead of being calculated separately for each day. A mistake claimed by the officials to be due to the wrong translation of the French regulations. Time control, Alan Corns and his men had put the time clock on a table on the back of the pickup to avoid any more accidents, and he even had a shelter to keep out the rain. Here we see Jeff Davison, Frank Anderton, Bert Bowman, Barry Stanley and Jim Jones collecting riders' time cards for punching. The duties of travelling marshals began each day by opening the course from the start or one of the time checks. I well remember riding down Bray Hill in the pitch black on a trials bike with no lights. We had to make sure the route marking was correct and that gates and road crossings were manned. Arriving at the next time check, we would wait until the last man passed by, then ride to the next time check. Once again, we would wait for the end of the second lap and then would close the course to the next time check. Often we'd be asked to check out some action at the time check, watch for outside assistance, or even confirm size of engines, etc. I remember trying to get near to one of the Polish team's Jawa machines. It was impossible. All Eastern European teams were accompanied by officials from the Communist Party. These were usually very large men wearing barroom overalls and black leather jackets. And I remember they seemed to drink copious amounts of strong beer. The service area here was very busy with refuelling and adjustments. This rider was changing his rear tyre. Was that allowed in those days? And in the British service pit, Gordon Lucas is very busy, complete with Union Jack on his back. The final day dawned frosty, and after a ride in the woods, the competitors returned to Douglas to go out and play at road racing. Legendary Alan Kipper Killip drove the official Morris Marina pace car to close the roads and lead the riders on the sighting lap. It was all great fun, and riders were given strict instructions not to overtake the pace car. Time for all the marshals to relax, get out the picnics and watch the fun. The Parkfield course took the competitors from the Glen Crutchery Road to Wollaston, Signpost and Governor's Bridge. And those still going really enjoyed the racing to complete 6 days that had covered many muddy miles in the glorious Manx countryside.
so good to be alive. Motorbiking, motorbiking.
The marina went round in front of each group of riders on their sighting lap. And once let loose, the riders took every advantage of the tarmac. It's hard to recognise who they are, but I'm sure you've recognised some of them. Some teams are riding in formation, and other riders are popping wheelies for the many spectators who are out in the sunshine enjoying the spectacle. For a lot of riders, it would be their first and only chance to ride part of the famous TT course. Then it was back to the finish at the TT grandstand, right in the centre of Douglas. It had been a fantastic 50th event, and now we had just had to wait for the final results. The West Germans had 80 bottles of champagne on ice waiting at the hotel. They had to wait over an hour to celebrate the break of the Czech stranglehold on the event. Italy was second and the Czechs were third. But Italy won the silver vase, with West Germany second and Holland third. Canada won the Watling Trophy, MZ the manufacturers, and the Czech club riders collected the club team prize. So here we are over 30 years later, and the Isde is just as popular and colourful. This is the Parc Fermé in New Zealand at Lake Taupo in 2006. And this is a British team service point in Greece in 2008. Many of the people involved in the 50th event are still attending the Isde. Peter Duke runs a successful Duke video company from the Isle of Man. Brian Higgins is seen here interviewing world champion and GNCC champion David Knight from the Isle of Man at the WEC GP of Wales in Llanidloes in 2008. Elwyn Price is clerk of the course for the Welsh 2-day Enduro, held every June in Llandrindod, Wales, and he travels with the Welsh teams to the Isde. Here's ex-army rider George Webb chatting with some current military riders up at the Scottish 6 Days trial in 2010. Here's Hans Eriksson watching his son compete on a special test at the World Enduro Championship in Portugal. Dane Marable, the one-time fire chief from Oklahoma City, better known to everyone as Okie, was at the Isle of Man event, and comments were made about the number of pin badges on his hat. He goes to almost every Isde and helps the British team. Here he is, keeping the times at Czech in Ceres, Greece. But sadly, he cannot take his hat on the aeroplane anymore. Ken Franklin and many of the South Liverpool members still organise the popular National Lomax Trial every Easter Monday in the Glyn Valley. Dick Sutton, one of the travelling marshals, is pictured here at the 2008 Welsh 2-day with a new wife and a new hip. German rider Herbert Scheck, and a KTM dealer, was in Team 200 Years with Jim Jones and Bob Room in the Welsh 2-day in 2004. And Jeff Smith is still winning races at veteran and classic event motocross events all over the world. Your film camera woman is still out there snapping away at bike events around the world. Here she is with Jim in New Zealand in 2007 while out riding the Shotover Canyon Trail. Thanks for watching, stay upright and enjoy your biking.
on my skin. Main attraction when they're dead on his feet. Black man rhythm with a white boy beat. They got him on milk and alcohol. They got him on milk and alcohol. Stay put, I wanna go. Hard work, bad show. More liquor, don't help. He's gonna die, breaks my heart. I decided eventually this ain't doing anything for me. They got him on milk and alcohol. Got him on milk and alcohol. Started up, feel bad, sad night, never saw a red light. Signs were screaming all around. I pulled on over and I shut her down. The black cop gave me a shot with his gun. Set up against the wall, don't make a run. They got me on milk and alcohol. Got me on milk and alcohol. Got me on milk and alcohol. They got me on milk and alcohol. They got me on milk and alcohol.
The final day dawned frosty, and after a ride in the woods, the competitors returned to Douglas to go out and play at road racing. Legendary Alan Kipper Killip drove the official Morris Marina pace car to close the roads and lead the riders on the sighting lap. It was all great fun, and riders were given strict instructions not to overtake the pace car. Time for all the marshals to relax, get out the picnics and watch the fun. The Parkfield course took the competitors from the Glen Crutchery Road to Wollaston, Signpost and Governor's Bridge. And those still going really enjoyed the racing to complete 6 days that had covered many muddy miles in the glorious Manx countryside. The West Germans had 80 bottles of champagne on ice waiting at the hotel. They had to wait over an hour to celebrate the break of the Czech stranglehold on the event. Italy was second and the Czechs were third, but Italy won the silver vase with West Germany second and Holland third. Canada won the Watling Trophy, MZ the manufacturers, and the Czech club riders collected the club team prize. So here we are over 30 years later, and the Isde is just as popular and colourful. This is the Park Ferme in New Zealand at Lake Taupo in 2006. And this is a British team service point in Greece in 2008. Many of the people involved in the 50th event are still attending the Isde. Peter Duke runs a successful Duke video company from the Isle of Man. Brian Higgins is seen here interviewing world champion and GNCC champion David Knight from the Isle of Man at the WEC GP of Wales in Llanidloes in 2008. Elwyn Price is clerk of the course for the Welsh 2-day Enduro held every June in Llandrindod, Wales, and he travels with the Welsh teams to the Isde. Here's ex-army rider George Webb chatting with some current military riders up at the Scottish 6 Days trial in 2010. Here's Hans Eriksson watching his son compete on a special test at the World Enduro Championship in Portugal. Dane Marable, the one-time fire chief from Oklahoma City, better known to everyone as Okie, was at the Isle of Man event, and comments were made about the number of pin badges on his hat. He goes to almost every Isde and helps the British team. Here he is, keeping the times at Czech in Ceres, Greece. But sadly, he cannot take his hat on the aeroplane anymore. Ken Franklin and many of the South Liverpool members still organise the popular National Lomax Trial every Easter Monday in the Glyn Valley. Dick Sutton, one of the travelling marshals, is pictured here at the 2008 Welsh Two-Day with a new wife and a new hip. German rider Herbert Scheck, and a KTM dealer, was in Team 200 Years with Jim Jones and Bob Room in the Welsh Two-Day in 2004. And Jeff Smith is still winning races at veteran and classic motocross events all over the world. Your film camera woman is still out there snapping away at bike events around the world. Here she is with Jim in New Zealand in 2007 while out riding the Shotover Canyon Trail. Thanks for watching, stay upright and enjoy your biking.